How do you know when strategy is either a necessary adaptation or a dangerous distraction? Let's apply a traditional Japanese concept from martial arts and tea ceremonies to sales, because that's totally something that you asked for. Well, it's called ShuHaRi, and it roughly translates to keep, fall, break away. Shu, meaning keep or obey, for traditional wisdom and fundamentals. Shu is like building muscle memory and foundations for you to rely on, and you do many and many and many repetitions. Because if the executive functions of your brain are compromised, you've got something to stick to. Ha means detach or digress or fall. You start to break away from tradition to find new exceptions or new approaches, and through all of that, find your own individual meaning or path. If Shu is the what to do, Ha is the why you do it or how you do it. And finally, Ri means to separate or leave, fully to break away from tradition. You transcend tradition, and all of your movements and actions start to become natural and at one with spirit. This territory is reserved for fearless abstraction. This requires absolute immersion and adaptation. Now, if it's not immediately clear which one of these you're in currently, either in sales or some other path you're on, I'd suggest just taking one step back to where you have more certainty. For instance, if you're new to sales, but you've been running into sophisticated prospects and they're sort of forcing you or feeling like you need to ditch your script, look at some of the Ha activities where you can practice in a safe environment and find your own voice. This would be things like role play, experiment with new questions, rebuttals, word tracks, and being a little bit more you. Find just outside of your comfort zone, go there, and sit with it. And better yet, what I'd recommend you do in this phase is listen to a more advanced salesperson, listen to their calls, and see if you can distill down their basic frameworks. Find their Shu through all of their Ha. They're gonna sound different than you, but they're still probably doing some of the same things that you've learned how to do or that you can kind of identify. Now, a modern model for ShuHaRi is the 4 stairs of competence: unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. That's quite the mouthful, and plus, ShuHaRi just sounds way cooler. The new normal in these wild times we're living in is to move fast, break things, and otherwise constantly shift from shiny object to shiny object. Now look around you. The world is full of distractions. Whether it's on your phone, on TV, the Joneses next door, the world is trying to distract you from your path. And while me personally, I'm a sucker for variety, the compound effect of consistency is undeniable. Now, if you want to go deeper on this, let's look at each of the states of ShuHaRi in depth. First is Shu. Let me ask you, when's the last time you truly followed a practice, a process, a movement, or an action ad nauseum? You actually stuck with the program for 6 weeks or 6 months. You hit your numbers, you made dials, you crossed your T's, etc., etc. When's the last time you went to the gym and you repped out until failure? You cramped up, you bled, you collapsed. Now that's a little gruesome, but you get the point. And if you can't answer that confidently, it's Shu for you. Stick with the program, find structure, apply the fundamentals that you know with intention and care, and practice it until you can't get it wrong. Now, the beauty of this is that when you're in a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn scenario, the subconscious mind responds with what you have previously drilled into it. This is the wax on, wax off kata form that Mr. Miyagi teaches Daniel-san. And if you can currently zone out and get zen, then good for you. The Shu phase may be relatively easy, and that actually means that the next 2 stages will be much more challenging. And if this stage is agonizing for you because you're desperate to hack and find a better way, stay patient and you'll soar in the next phase once the foundation is laid. Next is Ha. Let me ask you if you've ever been in a scenario where you were forced to break protocol or process. How did it feel? The situation called for some sort of improv and you riffed with it and you kind of rose to the occasion. Pretty good. Now, if you're mostly following the rules, but you're bending some to save time or to fit the moment, then you've already practiced this. You've practiced Ha. Now you'll need to learn why behind what you've already learned what to do. You'll need to learn the why that you've used to be successful, and learning this and reflecting on this can kind of be like staring into a void, staring off into the night sky. guy. And if you're in the Ha phase, it's likely that you're using this time to study other approaches from different practitioners as a way to reactivate your early success from the Shu phase. Beginner's luck takes a dip because you're not a machine. You're becoming more aware of your own ignorance and incompetence, and it scares you. You start to hesitate or doubt yourself. This is known as the Dunning-Kruger cognitive bias or effect. The Ha phase requires reflection. It also asks you to find your own answers, and you'll need to study where the traditional came from in the first place. Why was this thing created, and what was it used for then, and am I still using it for the same purpose, or is it now irrelevant, and must I adapt and change and learn something new? Understanding why something was created tells you a lot about its limitations, its strengths and weaknesses, and it's necessary in the Ha phase for you to find or forge your own path. Finding our individuality is empowering, revealing, and scary as hell. This is why most practitioners and technicians are average. It takes courage to break free here, break free from tradition, and think differently. It's also precisely what every master for you has had to do. This stage is ugly, messy, and it's not for the faint of heart. If your patience is in thin supply, then you need not apply. The results of the master will be shut to you. Go back to the basics and save yourself the heartbreak, because Ha is genre bending. It's where pioneers have lived and died on the vine before you. You can't abandon the structure completely yet, but you have some space to ever so gently veer off the path and play outside the lines. In the beginning, this is gonna seem like dancing in the dark until you find your own rhythm. Maybe if you're in sales, it feels easier to rewrite your own script. Play with an email template or text template and add a bit of you. The best sales reps that I know do this immediately. And once more and more of you starts to come through the work that you do, soon your doubt will give way to euphoric wonder. And then once you realize that this nuance is possible more consistently, you'll start to have more fun. And if you're in sales, you're a human being dealing with human beings who are trying to solve often really complex problems, which means it'll never be perfect anyway. But that doesn't mean that you throw the baby out with the bathwater. The goal is not chaos here. It's a unique, natural, and productive sales conversation that ends in a clear outcome. Now, I'm going to be honest, this is where most of you will spend most of your career. So get comfortable with this. Get comfortable with trial and error and fall in love with the middle. Now, lastly is Ri. If Ha is veering off the beaten path, then Ri is parachuting deep into the forest and building a new life there. It requires immersion. This is quite frankly why people will live in ashrams, monasteries. They will detach themselves from their earthly possessions and they will go and study or live amongst other people in other cultures and oftentimes speak different languages. It's why people will take a vow of silence or celibacy. Now, I'm going to speak really candidly about this stage of mastery, Ri, because quite frankly, I only have so much experience with it. Any human being who has stuck with something for an extremely long amount of time usually still only has a very narrow experience with mastery. And the only two areas of my life that I could honestly claim some sort of mastery in are going to be communication and sales, what I'm doing now, and weightlifting, bodybuilding, or fitness. I've been an athlete my whole life, and I've studied many different types of methodologies or movement styles, athletic styles. And I personally feel that mastery occurs when we're able to use what we've learned in practice at the precise moment that we need it, the moment that matters most. And see, when a situation calls for something, if we're able to reach into our quiver or tool belt and act instinctively with what seems like minimal effort. But remember, the master has already spent countless hours understanding what's behind or beneath everything that they face, every situation. And salespeople often yearn for things to say or do to make more money. They ask me, what do I do when someone says this? And instead, the master asks themselves, what's the prospect really trying to tell me? The master seeks to understand what's behind the objection. And they may hear traditional wisdom echoing in their head, and they may sometimes share some of that wisdom if it serves the conversation. But the end result is always in service to the work, because saying something intelligent is usually for you, not them. Playing the most technical phrase of notes is to show off, rarely serves the song. The Ri phase is to become one with spirit or essence of something, finding the spark or the core of why anyone chooses to do this thing in the first place. Sales is really about making decisions that are valuable and mutually beneficial. Music is about emotions and connection, sharing something. Bodybuilding is about aesthetic and symmetrical physique. It's not about how much weight you lift. That's weightlifting or powerlifting. So for me, as a master in sales or a self-proclaimed master in sales. You be the judge. Every day, every time I show up to a sales call, I must put my conscious effort into helping that person make a good decision. If I'm focused on what I get out of it and my outcome instead of theirs, I'll either miss something or they'll smell my commission breath and any insincerity that can exist on that call. The rephase is also about transcendence, and spiritually, transcendence happens only in the presence of love. Love must be present. Now, some days you'll feel like you hate the game, but if you're truly a master, you know you couldn't live without it. So if you're in sales for the money alone, get out. It'll destroy you, and it may leave you in financial ruin, because you can love the money that comes in sales, but you have to love the people too. You have to love the game. It's often why I'll help sales reps change niches or industries when they follow only earning potential instead of their interests or their experience. So fall in love with all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly. The feeling of a big commission check, the results your clients get after they invest in themselves and did the work. Fall in love with the stupid shit that you say on sales calls. Fall in love with the weird prospects that come through the pipeline. Fall in love with the days where your calendar is empty and you have to go and make your own luck. And no matter where you are in the path to mastery, I just hope that it brings you closer to love and the spirit of the game that you're playing.